your child comes back after you think you've lost her, but and then it turns out it's not your child, it's something else. That's a very primal, very simple idea that taps into like 1,000 years of mythology. Like this really happened in the real world where parents came to believe that their children had been replaced by monsters and the only thing to do was to kill them. It's a real thing that happened. And what if that was really real? I think in the real world it had to do with like autism, where if you don't know what autism is, and at like age 2 your child starts acting in strange ways where they're not quite themselves anymore. If it's the 1200s, you go to changeling, snatched my baby, and this is not my child anymore. That's like tapping into like 1,000 years of history and mythology and that sort of thing. So the idea of your child is not your child, that's a really cool idea. And I think if the movie had really leaned into that aspect of it and ditched all the detail, like I'm not even saying do exactly what I want, I'm just saying ditch all the detail that's distracting from this really primal idea of your child is evil. And there's this thing in your house that looks like your child, but she's not your child. Now what do you do? And by the way, with every day that passes, you're putting what remains of your family in more danger. Like, what do you do in that situation? And that's real horror. Like the idea of a parent having to view their child as evil and coming to the realization that that is what's happening. That's not personal horror for me because I don't have a child, but I can just like, that's so primal and so universal. I can empathize with that idea, but it's also so removed from reality that the movie has to sell you on it. And I think the movie's job was selling you on this idea that Katie is no longer Katie and she's evil. And every day you try to help her, you're making things worse. Isn't that a parent's worst nightmare? I don't know. It seems like a better movie to me.
Yeah. I think there was some moments though where like for example where the mother was in denial, but whereas the father was doing something about the mother being in denial, if that makes sense. Because I think there was a
Yeah.
scene where I think the father even said, "Okay, I think Katie needs to. She pretty much needs to get out of the house. We need to take her to a hospital somewhere." And obviously the mom was like, and that's when the mother kind of went against what you were saying and said, "No, I can look after my daughter," and then which led to the argument. Obviously, when that happened, that's when the father went out to do more investigating to see what he could do to help his daughter, knowing that okay, something's going on here, and there's not, like I said, there's not no infection or sickness or anything like that. So I think there was scenes like that. What you're saying now, it wasn't as cleaner in terms of the script as you would want it to be, but I think there was some of that there.
Yeah, it absolutely was. There's absolutely scenes you can point to where this idea shows up. I'm just saying, if you simplify the movie to the point where that is the movie, I think this could have been an instant classic. And as it stands, it's kind of mixed. And I think it's going to be forgotten very quickly because of all those flaws. And I think that's a shame because like the core of this is quite strong, I think. And like the execution of it is quite strong. But in my view, like even if somebody doesn't share all the flaws that I've mentioned, if they make a list of stuff that doesn't quite work, there's going to be some overlap. If that wasn't the case, and I think it's completely self-inflicted. None of this had to be there. It just seems like undisciplined and sloppy writing.